Hi folks, and welcome back to my allotment. Today we're going to be talking all about vertical planters. Now I'm very excited about this. For a long time people have been telling me, JB, you should be growing vertically on your allotment because it's really efficient, it saves a lot of space and lots of things like it. And it's just one of those things I've never really gotten around to. And earlier this year I was very lucky. A charity called Rooted in Bolton, I'll put all the links in the description, but Rooted in Bolton really kindly sent me a GreenStalk because they've started importing them into the UK, and they are one of the most sought after kind of well-reviewed vertical planters that everyone raves about. So I set them all up a few days ago. I'll show you some of the time-lapse footage now, talk over it, give you a little bit of my first impressions and show you how it was getting them set up.
The first thing you see here is me moving a bathtub into the polytunnel, which looks a bit weird, but that's what I use to make up loads and loads of potting mix whenever there's a big job. But it's not just the GreenStalk we're going to look at today. There's 3 other vertical planters going together there. And those grey discs that you see going into the GreenStalk, they're really cool. They evenly distribute the water as you water down from the top. More on that later as well. But there's one thing that I underestimated when it came to this job, and that is just how flat the ground needs to be. Now you can see these are all going in my polytunnel, and I had this little area of slabs here, but it wasn't quite as level as I thought. And when you've got a tall GreenStalk planter, it really does need to be bang on level. So after more time than I would care to admit, this did take a very long time in the hot polytunnel, it was all leveled out and ready for the planters to go on. But what am I filling this with? Well, a few different kinds of compost. You can see a few different brands there, mostly Silver Grow and some spent compost. You can see there's a little bit of perlite that's gone in there. And this is what perlite looks like. It's a fantastic addition. It really helps drainage, which is going to be key for a vertical tower system, I think. Then we've got some of this Q4 root moor going on, which is a mycorrhizal fungi, and then just some general all-purpose pelleted feed. This stuff's pretty cheap and cheerful, but it should keep the plants happy because they're going to be in here for quite a long time. You really want to get this potting mix high quality and right from the beginning. And then just plenty of time getting it all nice and mixed together, nice and evenly distributed, breaking up any big clumps as well. And then it was time to start filling them up. So I started with the little black one first, then moved on to the white one. The white one didn't take much compost actually, especially compared to that black one there. And then the big one, the GreenStalks, and it was just wild how much more compost these GreenStalks took. They really do hold an awful lot. And when you get one of these full, I mean, the soil was fairly moist, it wasn't wet, but one of those layers just completely full is quite a challenge to pick up. You know, they have got some real weight to them. The amount of compost that goes into them doesn't really compare to the other two, if I'm honest.
So here they are, all finished. Now this is a bit of a problem, this floating shelf. I will be getting rid of this soon. Unfortunately, I've not had great pea germination, so I was just holding on, hoping that I get a little more germination, but I'll just have to get that out and get this hanging shelf down so it's not in the way. And you can see the 3 different types. We've got here the £10 Aldi one, here the £20 one from Facebook Marketplace. I'll look up and hopefully find a bit more information about this brand. And then we've got towering next to it, the GreenStalk, absolutely huge in comparison. So let's talk a little bit about first impressions of all of these. Now, obviously I've not planted anything in them yet. We're going to get that done today, but I can give a little bit of like my first ideas, setting it up and how it works. Now this Aldi planter, I was actually really impressed with. It was only £10. It goes together super simply. The main drawbacks, this is very static. It doesn't come with a roller or anything like that, so it's quite difficult to like move around once it's in. And you can see actually back here, this one is really dry, where it's quite difficult to water around the back. And speaking of watering, this one isn't particularly self-watering. Okay, so the idea with most vertical planters generally is that you should be able to just water the top bit and then it will all percolate down and water basically the whole tower. That doesn't really happen with this one. You have to water each of the pockets individually. So there is some drainage in here. It will kind of percolate down, but it won't fall out of here. Quite often you'll have a little pocket and it will fall down here and water the top of this one. There's also no tray on the bottom, so you do get a lot of water running out, and that's not very efficient, especially if you're fertilizing. So I think water regulation is going to be the main issue in this one, and getting around to see what's going on at the back with the plants the white one is much better in terms of watering because each of these pockets do have really good drainage, which will kind of fall through if you just water the top and the second, the kind of top one and then the second one down. It should filter all the way through, and it does have a little tray which is good for capturing that water. Now it does come on like wheels, so this thing does have wheels, and in theory you can spin it around, and actually that's not too bad. When I first did it, I think it was a little stubborn, but my biggest concern with this one, the white one, is that it just feels really unsteady. So it's on a nice, perfectly level slab. Did a lot of work with the spirit level, literally spent hours. But this thing, can you see that? Can you see it go? It looks really, really unsteady. And I can imagine one day just, I don't know, you know, catching it with a tool or something, catching it with an elbow when you're bending down, weeding, or you're hitting it with the watering can or something like that, and this whole thing just teetering over. It's the actual base, it just doesn't feel that steady. It feels very like a flimsy bit of plastic that is bending with the weight. It makes me very, very nervous. I do not like it at all. But in theory, you can spin it around, which is really good because one of the main things about spinning is you're encouraged to spin them occasionally, you know, every week or so that all of the plants are getting a nice equal amount of light. So, I don't know, this one, it just makes me nervous, but we'll see how it grows.
One weird thing about these white planters is that they've got these kind of concave bulges on the outside there. And I don't really know what that's for. It just means less compost, less growing space. And they've got these little black partitions as well. I guess that's to encourage a little bit of drainage, but neither of the other planters have that. I don't really know if it's necessary. I feel like with vertical planters, underwatering and drying out too quickly is more likely going to be your issues.
And then we have the GreenStalk. Now this thing, its reputation precedes it. You've probably seen lots and lots of growers do videos on these. I'll link one in the description. I think Gardener Scott in America was really one who kind of popularized these, at least as far as I'm aware of. He was kind of the first one that I heard talking about these. And Audrey from our live stream group has been raving about them as well. She really, really rates them. And the first thing, I mean, just look at that spin. It's just so good, so ergonomic, very little wobble, not much. I mean, it does move around, but it just feels so much more solid than that white one. You know, this one feels like it's not going anywhere at all, touch wood.
Now, actually, this did wobble a little bit more than I was expecting. And after filming that segment, I did go back and have a quick look, and I realized that there was compost lodged in a lot of the clips, so the different layers of the GreenStalk hadn't necessarily formed a perfect seal, and that is what was causing the wobbling. So I went in with a screwdriver. It was pretty fiddly, not very pleasant to be honest, but I did get them all much, much more level, and then the wobbling stopped.
And the other thing is it just feels so high quality, like the plastic feel, you know, it's just 3-4 times as thick as everything else. Just one of these is quite heavy, you know, let alone before you fill it with soil. It feels like one of those things that is designed to last, you know, decades. I think this thing is going to do really well for a really long time. The watering, way, way, way simpler than anything else. This one, it has a bespoke, this little half level at the top here is specifically for watering. I'll show you a little close-up of how the drainage works, and it's really, really cool. It's really nice to know you just have to water along the top and it's going to percolate down through absolutely everything. The volume of compost and potting mix in this one is absolutely wild. It would have been nice to kind of measure it and see, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's way more in one of these than the other two combined. Although the Aldi one did take quite a lot of compost actually. For something like these pockets, this is the leaf model, by the way. There's a few different models. I think this is the smaller one, and it's huge, you know, because the compost goes all the way to the center of these. You can obviously see there's a little pocket here, but it's like this. The entire center is filled with compost, so those roots can reach back Now, just before I get these planted up, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the position they're in. So I've got all 3 in my polytunnel. For something like a vertical planter, you absolutely don't have to keep it under cover. All of these could go outside. I would be really nervous about this white one in the wind though, and with something like, I don't know, pigeons or crows landing on it, foxes, badgers you might have on your allotment like we do. I can really easily see that thing toppling over. Not so much with the GreenStalk, and definitely not so much with this one. I mean, this one is really stable because it's not on a base at all. It just, all that weight goes across the bottom level. But you can use these to grow all sorts of different things. I think you are slightly limited by the size, so I wouldn't be growing something like a squash in here, but tomatoes and chilies I could definitely do in the GreenStalk. Maybe not so much the white one. There's not actually as much compost in the white one, but in these black ones, that is the other thing about these Aldi planters. That is a lot of compost. You could probably grow a small squash in that top level, and you could definitely try some tomatoes and chilies, which I think is what I'm going to do. Obviously, it's still quite early in the season, so I can't get anything like that in there yet, but something I can get in is strawberries, and this is kind of my dream for these planters. I could kind of see the entire lot, all 3, just being full of strawberries, and that would make me really, really happy. I don't have that many strawberry plants, but we're going to put a few in each of these and see as the season goes on if there's any differences. I'm going to do lots of other crops in here as well, and it's going to be a bit of an experiment. One of the things about the polytunnel now, it's starting to warm up. Can't really do things like salads. I think they would bolt really, really quick, so I won't be doing any of that. But January, February in winter time, I think you could get some really nice salad crops out of these, and really, really exciting. There's something about this, I love spinning it. I should say as well, the spinning base for the GreenStalk is an added extra, and as well as the spinning base, they have all sorts of added extras that you can buy. Not so much with this, it's not very customizable, or this one, but these you can buy plant supports if you want to do tomatoes or chilies. I was kind of tempted by those. You can put wheels on the bottom as well, so if you do get this in its final place and then want to move it around, you can. I'm fairly confident with this being its final place. I think that's going to be okay. You do need to think a little bit about what you're planting where, and if it's going to trail out and shade other things as well. But let's get some strawberries in, shall we? Oh, I'm excited. Here we have our lovely, lovely strawberry seedlings. We've got 3 varieties that are going in: the Summer Breeze, the Loran, and the Ruby Ann. To be honest, this is just what my local garden nursery had, and I had a quick Google of all the varieties, and they looked really good. They came in tiny little plugs that are repotted. They were just this tiny, tiny little plug. They are looking really, really healthy, fantastic root growth. So we're just going to pop them in these vertical planters. I feel like you might be able to get away with 2 in here, but I'm just going to play it on the safe side and go with 1 for now in each of the pockets to try and make that fair as well. But so easy to plant into. So everything is planted out. I am extremely excited, but first impressions, the first thing, this Aldi planter, not being able to rotate it is really annoying, really, really frustrating. And this thing, it does move, you can rotate it, but it nearly migrated towards me and fell off the slab, actually. It's a real tricky thing to kind of control, so it's a little bit tricky, the white one. Whereas the GreenStalk, just such a dream to rotate and keep everything in the light. Now, one thing that did really, really surprise me, okay, so like I say, the GreenStalk was sent to me completely free of charge. I did pay for the base, the added extra, but I do always do very honest reviews on the channel, and something that really surprised me about the GreenStalk, quite hard to plant into. So I might have possibly made a mistake by filling up the whole thing with compost in one go. The little space that they give you to plant into is actually really, really small. So I'm lucky, I'm quite a small guy, right? I'm 5'7", relatively small hands. I can get in there, okay. But if I had like giant working man's hands, I think I'd really struggle to kind of like plant fiddly little things in there. And you saw how small those strawberry plugs were. If I was dealing with something like a 3-centimeter pot, it would just about be okay, but might be a little tricky. The other thing they say is, as you're filling up, fill this compost to the top, which I guess makes sense for settling and that kind of thing, but I found actually I had to scoop quite a lot out, but that was true for all 3 of these actually. But I think for a 3-centimeter pot, I'd have to scoop an awful lot out, and I did try, seeing how a 1 litre pot would go. It definitely wouldn't go into the GreenStalk, but to be fair, it wouldn't go in any of the others either. But I did have the most trouble with just a small plant with the GreenStalk, which really did surprise me. To be honest, that is the only negative thing I have to say about the GreenStalk, and that is a problem that I've probably created myself. I could have just done these bit by bit, and if you had a big 1 litre pot, once it was out and you were filling it with compost, then you could just plant your 6 plants in it and then fill up the compost around it, and that would work just fine. But you wouldn't want to do that every season. And I was just thinking, if the expectation is that's the way you're meant to plant your plants into these, which I don't think it is, then every season you'd have to empty the whole lot and replenish the compost mix or the potting soil. Let me know if you've got a vertical planter, what you do with the soil contents. Do you empty out the potting mix every year? I feel like this would last at least 3 years. I'd probably leave it 5, as long as I was confident with the texture, and then I would just fertilize with something to keep all the plants nice and healthy. I'd be really surprised if you're intended to replace this all of the time. The other thing just to mention, the water is so consistent in the GreenStalk. So everything that I planted into, really nice consistent levels of water, whereas these two, didn't know if I was going to go into a dry patch or if the soil was going to be sitting a little concerningly wet. But there we have it, first impressions. Make sure you like and subscribe and do all that good stuff below if you want to follow on and see how these go later in the season as I plant in more and more plants. Thank you ever so much for watching, and an extra special thank you to all of my Chili Pepper tier patrons: Tony, Bill, Pam, Mel, Michael, Socks, Dorcas, Louise, Andre, Brett and Tom. Hopefully I'll see you again in the next one.